Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next session of the day. My name's Erin Roach. I'm the Executive Director at the Diversity Institute at Ryerson University, where we are leading the research on the Future Skills Center, as well as have numerous projects related to newcomers, innovation, employment, entrepreneurship, and skills development. So very pleased to be here. Today, our panel is on innovative approaches to supporting English as a second language. And we have a fabulous panel for you, including Ashley Manuel and Fatmata Kamara, who are both from the Association for Canadian Studies, your hosts for the Metropolis Conference. We have Bayan Khatib, who is co-founder and executive director of the Syrian Canadian Foundation. And we also have Stuart Schwartz, Program Manager at Language Training Center at Red River College. So we are going to be discussing today innovative approaches to teaching English as a second language. We all know the critical importance of language when it comes to newcomer success in the Canadian economy and Canadian society, and that some of the programming out there works for some, but may not work for everyone. And perhaps there are other things we could be doing to explore tools and approaches that enable success. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Ashley Manuel and Fatmata Kamara, who will set the stage on some of these technologies that are out there and how they're applicable in the context of English language acquisition.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on what time zone you're joining us from. My name is Ashley Manuel, and I'm at the Association for Canadian Studies. And myself and my colleague Fatmata Kamara are here to talk to you about enhancing language learning training through emerging technologies. So language acquisition is one of the most important factors that influences the success of an immigrant's integration. And the disparities that COVID-19 pandemic has brought to light demonstrate more now than ever that these new approaches are needed to drive improvement in ESL instruction. Next slide, please, Fatmata. Thank you. The ACS is currently in the midst of putting the final touches on our draft research paper for the Immigrant Employment Council of BC, the Diversity Institute, and the Future Skills Center. And this paper looks at emerging technologies and their capabilities to facilitate the delivery of integration services for newcomers to Canada with a focus on healthcare. But for today's presentation, we're going to look at the areas of the report that have to do with employment and language learning and address how emerging technologies can enhance language training services in the settlement sector, particularly as it relates to learning affordances provided by virtual reality, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence. So with that, I'm going to let Fatmata speak to the specific technologies, and then I'll come back in at the end to wrap up.
Hi, everyone. So we're going to start with virtual reality. And so virtual reality is a technology that has evolved massively over the past few years. And it is a virtual, sorry, it's weird. And it's a computer-generated reality that has become extremely realistic thanks to interactive features such as haptic feedback, so feedback that you feel, along with lifelike graphics and surround sound. So virtual reality can simulate a real environment, such as kind of like a moonwalk or ocean exploration or a visit to another country. Or it can create a fictional world with 3D objects and other virtual elements. So virtual reality offers many opportunities for multi-directional interaction for the target audience. And this means that video game-like applications can provide multi-directional interaction through during foreign language learning, which can allow students to receive really valuable feedback during their usage of this technology. Okay, so we're going to describe a few studies that have shown how virtual reality can be used or is used to enhance second language learning. So LAN in 2015 did a study which purpose was to create a virtually immersive EFL learning context for EFL learners in Taiwan. So he used both qualitative and quantitative data, which collected from about 132 elementary school students. The results were generally positive. So through the EFL virtual learning environment, he was able to provide three things. So the virtual environment was able to provide students with learning opportunities without any problem with no time or space limits. Second, they was able to provide students with a game-like scenario for English language learning. And three, all these things combined were able to enhance the learners' overall EFL performances. And then Morton and Jack in 2005 also did a study, and in their study, they found that simulations were able to offer students increased opportunities for practice for using computerized interlocutions in a patient-oriented environment. A third study was by Cheng and Yang Anderson in 2017. And this study was used to evaluate the impact of the virtual reality game designs and conducted a formative user study with about 68 participants. The results of the study suggested that virtual reality technology can provide an opportunity to leverage culturally relevant physical interaction, which can enhance the design of language learning technology and virtual reality games. The next technology we're going to talk about is augmented reality. So in comparison to virtual reality, augmented reality is a complete immersion in a digital environment. So in an augmented reality, virtual information is overlaid onto the real world. So in the real world is enhanced, so augmented, by digital details such as animations, text, and images in real time. And users aren't isolated from the real world and what's going on in front of them. So many people get a taste of this augmented reality game. But as an example, a few years ago with Pokemon Go was an example of augmented reality, which rose in popularity and had people chasing down digital animals and doing battle in parks. So it's a perfect example of digital reality. So some of the learning affordances available or that augmented reality does provide for language learning is that it provides place-based learning. So this allows people, example, giving moving tours to place-based games, places learning in a more active role. So using the target language potentially to read, listen, speak, and write. So if the game is well designed, it also offers engagement and entertainment along the way. Another great thing about augmented reality is that it allows the learner to practice pragmatic behaviors. So pragmatic behaviors are often really difficult to teach due to the absence of easily defined rules, the considerable variation in appropriateness depending on context and individual, and the ways that present a possibility of a speaker choosing not to use a particular learned pragmatic feature for personal reasons. So in a game environment, pragmatic choices can be shown to have quite dramatic consequences. So it also offers a possibility of making such choices in a safe environment. So you can always restart the game if there's any difficulties in the game, which allows people to really, really learn from their mistakes and practice pragmatic behavior such as that. And then finally, it provides a rich contextual language learning opportunity where people are able to learn within their environment of their choosing. So in 2015, Silva and Tribe, I think, conducted a study among school children in Brazil. In this study, their findings found that their results found that supported their hypothesis that this technology could help to motivate students and foster the development of their language learning skills. In 2014, Yang and Liao were able to use AR for students and help them visualize cultural contents and promote the interpersonal communication between teacher and students. And in 2018, a study conducted by Ibrahim et al., they found that specifically when participants learned through augmented reality, they scored significantly better on both same-day and 4-day delay productive recall tests than in comparison to when they were learning flashcard method for vocabulary learning. So artificial intelligence. So the main objective of AI is to optimize routine processes. It helps to improve speed and efficacy of technology. So it's able to adapt. So positives of AI in education is that it's able to adapt to students' needs. So every individual in any classroom setting has individual learning needs. And so AI, because it's able to adapt, is able to take the individual needs of students into consideration. And then with AI integrated into learning processes, educators can collect tons of data, so directly from feedback. So provide instant feedback right away. So if any errors, any spelling errors, any pronunciation errors, AI technology is able to give instant feedback. And then there's also, in this context, there's no fear of failing. Because since there's no fear of judgment from the technology, the student's able to jump in with 2 feet without fear of any mistakes being reported back to them. There's also the role of the teacher, which will be redefined in this with this technology. The teacher will be able to stand back and let the students learn on their own. And their role in this case will be to guide them through the technology and also give them help them understand the feedback that they received through the technology. Also, again, this education will be extremely personalized. So in terms of language education, since everyone learns language differently and also has a very different starting point with their language learning, this technology will help people have learning tools that suit their level of learning. There's also been found with artificial intelligence that it actually increases engagement of student learners, and they're more engaged in their learning and their learning environment. So there's 3 main ways that AI can be applied to language learning. So the one is language bots. So if you have Duolingo on your phone, that is an example of a language bot. Machine translation, so tools such as Google Translate, and personalized textbooks. And we'll go more into personalized textbooks on the next slide. So in a study by Dodigovich in 2007, he did a study on AI in error remediation. So error remediation, basically, or error correction, is a way to develop competence of language learners in a second or foreign language. It can be used in order to attain conscious knowledge of second language or foreign language. And so in this study, the use of AI technology, the findings show that artificial intelligence was a very efficient instrument for error remediation. So in this case, in his study, it reduced the error rate by an average of 83%. Then the next technology is AI textbooks, which I mentioned earlier. So in a study by Ledo et al. In 2019, they did a comparison between Pearson e-textbooks and Pearson regular paper textbooks. So overall, students found that using AI and voice-powered e-textbooks were able to perform 4 times better than those using standard text-based ebooks. So the ebooks, these textbooks use AI technology in order to increase student learning. So example, as students are learning a lesson, they can verbally ask the e-textbook questions about a topic and can receive an answer straight away. So the positives of things like this is that students can work step by step and receive hints along the way. So if any correction errors along the way, they will receive hints that help them correct themselves as they go along. These books are also highly interactive, and they could also collect a lot of data. So this data that's collected could also help the teachers and educators plan for further testing in the future or for further lesson plans. Also, in addition, this technology is very, very adaptable. And as I said before, it can be easily adaptable to any student, any learning situation. With these textbooks, there's also a ease of delivery. So students can work, so it's very easy to implement and anyone can use it with little training from a teacher.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Fatmata. So the emerging technologies that Fatmata just highlighted has a great advantage in providing immersive and adaptable experiences which are able to create context for vocabulary. Newcomers can use this vocabulary within their virtual environments, which can be easily applicable to their real life situations. So one example where we saw a need for this was within the region of Durham, Ontario, in 2017. And this region developed an online community-based immigration portal for English learning newcomers and found that learners appreciated being exposed to task-based learning as an action-oriented approach to language acquisition. So for settlement programs that focus on task-based learning methodology for this type of learning, virtual reality and augmented reality, AR, are at the forefront of developing effective task-based learning. This approach helps language learners develop pragmatic competency in their new language, which is essential to being able to connect what they have learned with real-life practice. Now, traditional language learning is not adept in providing context for language use in the same way that technologies can provide. And general knowledge of an official language does not equate to familiarity with or an application of language skills with an appropriate context for newcomers. So people's linguistics competencies differ considerably depending on the context in which they live and work. Their learning experiences all demonstrate that emerging technologies within virtual reality and AR have the ability to account for this. So with that, I think that we are done our portion of the presentation. And we hope that that gives like a very good context for our other presenters. And I'm going to turn it over either to Bayan to just jump right in or.
Yes, Bayan, we'll jump right in. I just wanted to note that we're going to take questions at the end of the session. So you'll notice to the right of the presenter screen, there's a Q&A box. So if you have burning questions that you'd like to share with the group, if you enter them there, then we'll take questions at the end. And over to you, Bayan.
Thank you. So my name is Bayan Khatib. I'm the Executive Director of the Syrian Canadian Foundation. 5 years ago, a friend of mine called me and said, Bayan, there's a hotel in Toronto full of Syrian refugees. And my heart had been with Syria since the start of the uprising and the refugee crisis in 2011. And it was a very emotional moment for me to think that Syrian refugees were now in my hometown where I could truly make a difference in their lives. My friends and I made our way to the temporary housing where the refugees were living, and for the next few months, we spent most evenings and weekends volunteering at that hotel, scrambling to help with the various long list of urgent needs. It was actually in a meeting room in that hotel that we formed the Syrian Canadian Foundation. After dealing with some of those urgent needs, most of which were medical, we realized that most of the refugees didn't speak a word of English. And so even before they left the temporary housing, we set up English classes for them in the hotel's meeting rooms. As the refugees moved out of the temporary housing and into permanent housing, we helped them to connect to ESL providers And soon we realized that there was something wrong. These classes were not a good fit for all newcomers. And yet without English, most other steps to integration were blocked. So what was it about the ESL classes that wasn't working for some newcomers? Some newcomers were frustrated with the pace of learning. Some complained of slow pace, others complained of fast pace. If you have trauma-induced learning challenges, ESL can be too fast-paced for you. And if you're desperate to learn conversational English so you can get a survival job, ESL classes can be too slow for you. Some were finding that the timing of the classes didn't work for them. Some had irregular work hours, on again, off again shift work, and they just couldn't commit to the regular ESL classes. Some were able to leave their homes because of family responsibilities, illness, or disability. One of our clients had an elderly father who had Alzheimer's, and he was glued to her 24/7. She could never leave his side. And she actually tried to take him with her to her ESL class, but the teacher said that that was too disruptive, even though she let her try it out, and it didn't work out. And so she didn't know where to turn. Another challenge was some students were not able to focus in a big classroom setting or retain information. Like I said, when you're coming from a war zone and coming with trauma, or you have PTSD, you're not really able to retain information in a normal classroom setting. And you would do much better in a one-on-one learning environment. So I want to tell you the story of Emel, who I actually met at the Toronto Plaza Hotel, which was temporary housing for Syrian refugees when they arrived in 2015, 2016. Emel reached out to me on the first day that we met, told me her whole story, and since then we've stayed in very close touch. A few months after moving out of the hotel and registering in ESL classes, Emel called me crying and told me that her English teacher kicked her out of class. So I asked why, and she said because the teacher said that she was too disruptive to the class because of her illness. So Emel had a series of trauma-induced illnesses, including something like epilepsy that caused her to have frequent seizures and also pass out quite regularly. And so every time that happened, the teacher would have to call an ambulance to come and take Emel, and it would cause a big disruption in the class. And so she literally got kicked out of her ESL class. I told Emma that we would find her a volunteer English teacher that could help her one-on-one. And soon I realized that there were many stories like Emma's. And that's when we developed the Syrian Canadian Foundation's English tutoring program. This program was tailored to the needs of vulnerable newcomers, providing them with customized, flexible, accessible language training that meets their needs. So our English tutoring program focuses on conversational English, so that newcomers can quickly learn how to navigate at the bank, doctor's office, at their kids' schools. It provides newcomers with one-on-one English tutors so that they can practice language skills and also participate in cultural exchange activities that support their social integration. Ensuring accessibility to language training was key. So before COVID, we actually used to send these volunteer English tutors to the students' homes because many of our clients had illnesses and disabilities that prevented them from physically being able to leave their home and regularly attend ESL classes. Post-COVID, of course, all of this shifted to online. We were also ensuring accessibility by running small class sizes on weekends and on evenings so that people with irregular work schedules or mothers who needed to wait for other family members to take care of small children or babies could attend the classes. And even in the small classes that we ran, we also provided one-on-one volunteer English tutors so that the students could practice their English with them. 70% of our clients are women, which is not a surprise because women bear the brunt of the family responsibilities and face a lot more barriers, even with language training. And so 70% of our clients in this program were women. I also wanted to note that although we were inspired by the arrival of Syrian refugees to start this program. It is certainly open to people from diverse backgrounds, and we have people from many different backgrounds in our program. So back to Amal's story for a minute. I witnessed how the one-on-one support truly helped Amal advance in her speaking skills. Amal had experienced unspeakable trauma during the war, and I could see that she had major challenges retaining information and focusing with the teacher in a classroom. And having that one-on-one support with her own personal English tutor really made a big difference in her life. A few other key features of our program include that we work actually with over 160 English tutoring volunteers every year. And we have a really great partnership with the University of Toronto's language department. They train our volunteers and they provide them with resources and support. And you might think, wow, 160 volunteers, it must be very hard to get such a big number of volunteers every year to work one-on-one with our students. But actually, it hasn't been very challenging at all. Our volunteers absolutely love what they do. They find their work deeply rewarding and satisfying, and they keep coming back to work with more and more students. Many of our volunteers are teacher candidates at OISE, and that creates a really wonderful win-win situation. They get to practice teaching skills, and our students get really excellent learning experiences. We also have a partnership with the University of McMaster. One of the students there started the Syrian Canadian Foundation Student Club, and their mission was to actually channel volunteers into our English tutoring program. So like I said, we've had very good success with working with a large number of volunteers every year. And because we're able to leverage such a large number of volunteers and leverage the partnerships with the University of Toronto and McMaster University, our program has very high ROI, both financially and impact-wise. Another key feature of our program is that we developed an e-learning curriculum hosted online that our tutors and students can access 24/7. So students can watch videos or check lessons whenever they have the time to practice their language skills, and it can be done at their own pace. People who need to go slower or faster have access to this e-learning platform all the time. And the curriculum features tailored lessons such as how to speak at the doctor's office if you're a pregnant woman, or how to ask for things at the grocery store. So finally, I'd like to say a little bit about the need for innovation in language training in Canada's settlement sector. So Canada's settlement sector is very strong, and it needs to be, because we attract a lot of immigrants and we support many refugees. However, the settlement sector has been slow to uptake innovation in how they serve clients. And there are various reasons for this, including funding limitations. And so I'm very glad that this topic is on the table at the conference today, and that we're able to tackle it from different directions together. At the Syrian Canadian Foundation, we're very interested in taking our programs in innovative directions that increase impact. For example, we are now looking into incorporating virtual reality into our language training program so that newcomers can have more opportunities to comfortably practice their English at their own pace and convenience. It's a very exciting direction that I know many people are exploring. The one thing I would say about this is that I would never propose replacing our volunteer English tutors with VR training. The human connection and cultural exchange that happens, the friendships that form during these interactions are crucial to integration and inclusion. But the addition of the VR components to language training can certainly provide effective enhancements, but never replacements to real life interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Bayan. And we'll take questions at the end. Next, we have Stuart Schwartz. He's program manager at Red River College to speak about another example of innovative approaches to English language training. And I believe we have a PowerPoint presentation here.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Ashley and Fatmata for a terrific overview of AI, VR, AR, really interesting. And thank you very much to Bayan for her sharing of Emil's story and the work you're doing at the foundation. I'd like to respectfully recognize that Red River College campuses in my current location are located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Stuart Schwartz, and I'm a program manager for ESL programming at Red River College Language Training Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's my pleasure to be speaking to you today on the topic of innovative approaches to supporting ESL. I'd like to focus my presentation on a research project we have ongoing at the Language Training Center, which we've called eSkills. eSkills is a 3-year research project funded by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada under its 2017 Service Delivery Improvement Call. IRCC launched a dedicated funding stream for service delivery improvements to increase efficiency and effectiveness of the settlement program. In particular, a portion of SDI funding was allocated towards activities that are experimental in nature and that test new approaches to delivering settlement services and or measuring the impact of specific services on the settlement program clients. Priorities listed in the call included research and analysis to drive innovation and or understand the user experience and language acquisition. eSkills is a 3-year project. It commenced in October 2018 and concludes in October of this year. I'd like to provide a project overview for you. The project exists in 5 stages. First, analysis. We surveyed current mobile device usage, for example, student comfort levels with using them, and conducted a literature review. Next phase was a design of a digital literacy model, as well as a competency framework. Our plan was to produce 3 modules with 4 competency areas. A module around content, collaboration, technology, and productivity, with approximately 3 to 4 lessons per module. And we mapped over 100 specific competencies relating to digital literacy. Third phase was around the development of an online self-guided course, which is currently ongoing. It's interesting to hear other speakers talk about learner autonomy and the change in the role of the instructor relative to new ways of learning. Fourth phase is implementation. We've conducted 3 pilots, one locally in Manitoba, one locally at the center, one locally in Manitoba, one in the PNT region. And we have a 4th that is being planned, and I'll speak more about that later. 5th phase was around the evaluation and redesign based on feedback, and as well a migration to Avenue, which is an online settlement language training solution for adult newcomers and teaching professionals. I wanted to share with you in the next slide our working digital literacy model. Give you a minute to have a look at it. You'll see at the center there are 4 components to digital literacy: productivity, content, collaboration, and technology. Productivity refers to the use of multiple applications to create and manage content. Content refers to the ability to access and evaluate digital content. Collaboration refers to the ability to communicate and learn with others using a variety of digital tools. And finally, technology refers to the selection, use, and maintenance of digital devices. I wanted to share with you next the sequence of a typical lesson in the course. Each lesson follows a similar sequence of tasks based on Bloom, and the sequence begins with lower levels of complexity and concludes with higher levels of complexity around the learning. So for example, the lesson will begin with vocabulary, followed by a video or demonstration, application that is guided, demonstration of skill, as well as analysis and evaluation, and then a creative component at the end. As has previously been mentioned, gamification is an underlying approach to the development and design of the course. Gamification draws from elements associated with games to make learning more engaging. For example, searching for something within a given time frame, and this motivates and encourages learners, creates some friendly competition, and allows learners to set their own goals. I'll just go through a couple features of the skills course that are aligned to the different components of the lesson that I just introduced. We talked about vocabulary near the beginning of each lesson, and clients encounter vocabulary in context, see it in sample sentences, can practice the vocabulary using the Quizlet app, which provides interactive activities like dragging and dropping. Video discussions is another component of the lesson design. And this facilitates learner-learner interaction, as well as learner-facilitator action and facilitator-learner interaction. Notice at the top row the option for learners to keep their faces hidden if they so choose. Quizzes are another feature of each lesson. There's a variety of quiz types matching multiple choice, fill in the blanks, and these quizzes are automatically graded. Should a student at the end of the lesson achieve a 75% success rate, the next set of lessons will be released to them. A key piece of each lesson is a simulation. The slide probably is not the best one. It's intended to kind of show how the design of the lesson is like a tree, and different decisions that the student makes in terms of how they want to move forward on their adventure lead to different outcomes, different opportunities. And the goal here with simulations is to create an immersive practice activity as close as possible to authentic tasks or situations. And I know one of our speakers today was referring to task-based learning. And there are 1 or 2 or 3 simulations in each lesson. Here are some examples of some simulations. In this case, the simulation is around online privacy and what to share and what not to share online. This is obviously a very timely theme, given the proliferation of phishing exercises that we're seeing now online. Here's another simulation around how to create an email address with an appropriate email name. And we know that that can be very challenging because, as other speakers have already mentioned, there's a pragmatic element to knowing what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. There's also simulation, for example, around phishing exercises I've mentioned, real scams that people may encounter online, both at work and at home. And finally, there's, as a final example, there's a simulation around creating effective passwords. What's a strong password? What's a less strong password? And as somebody who's had their password stolen a number of times recently, I can attest to the value of this simulation. As we near the close of my presentation, I just want to make people aware of, make the audience aware of our website, which is eskills.ca. And at this website, there is an opportunity for you to download some of our development templates, storyboards, frameworks, see a list of tools and try sample activities. And as mentioned at the start, we will be migrating our eSkills course to Avenue this fall, including a facilitator's guide and learner activities. So I invite anyone on the call to visit eskills.ca to learn more. I also mentioned that we would be piloting our eSkills course soon. And if your organization has clients who are funded by IRCC, we'd be very interested in considering you to considering having your clients or some of them at least participate in our pilot number 4, which should be occurring in June. And I'd invite you to contact me or my colleague Sherry Seymour, whose email is presented here, if you have interest in finding out more. We're also on Twitter at eSkills Canada. Should any questions arise that you may have that you would like to ask, hashtag eSkills QA or just hashtag eSkills. So that concludes my presentation. I'd just like to thank Metropolis and Future Skills for the invitation to present here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And I invite everyone to turn their cameras back on from the panel so we can open up the panel for some discussion. And we don't have a lot of questions, so if people have anything they were holding back, and there's lots of time, we have 15 minutes for questions. So far, we have one question for you, Bayan, and it's about your partnership with U of T. So someone would like to know how you built that partnership and how it works.
Well, I myself was a U of T student, so I have a lot of ties with the professors there. We actually started out with one of the student clubs called Helping Hands at the University of Toronto's Mississauga campus. And we needed volunteers. So we reached out to them and they started to send us volunteers. And then they connected with the head of the language department there to tell them about our program, and she loved the program, and then they started to provide us with more support. So back before COVID, we were doing in-person stuff. So they provided us with space at the campus in Mississauga, the campus in Toronto, where we held these small classroom sessions. They provided us with the volunteers, and then we continued to work with them, and they offered to do even more, which is train our volunteers and support the development of the e-learning curriculum. And so they've been very, very key supporters in making all of this happen. And they are the experts in language training, right? Like we aren't experts in language training. At that time, we were just starting out. We created this project because it was a need. And so it was important for us to partner with someone who's been in that space for a long time. Our expertise is understanding the needs of the newcomers and developing programs that are customized to their needs. And so it was a really wonderful partnership. one of the interesting things that happened is we developed a new class within that program, which was creative writing. And there we partnered with one of the teachers in the professional writing and communications department at U of T. And he was actually my writing teacher when I was at university. And he heard me talking on CBC once about what's going on in Syria and the refugee crisis. And he emailed me and said, I want to help. What can I do to help? And I said, you know what? A lot of these refugees that we work with have incredible stories. And some of them, you know, a lot of them were like level 1, 2, 3, but some of them were level 4, 5, 6 and could actually put together a story. They have some writing skills. So we created a special class for them, and he taught them how to do expressive writing, and they wrote their own personal experience stories about their refugee experiences. And Professor Guy Allen is his name. And he's now putting together a short story collection of these stories. And I can't wait to see it come to light. But that's one of the really awesome offshoots that happened from the main big program that we did.
Wonderful. So we don't have any other questions. So I guess we can open it up to the group just for discussion. If we don't have any others come in. I guess something that I'm interested in is Bayan and others in developing some of these tools like AI, VR, AR. What are some of the key considerations that you think need to be incorporated into some of the planning and development of tools for the populations you're working with, people who have experienced a lot of trauma, who might be coming from, you know, a variety of different cultures, background, linguistic backgrounds, ages. Very interested in your opinions on that.
Well, like I said, I'm very, very excited about the idea of including new innovative technology and language training, and it's actually a direction that we're taking. We're putting together a program that now incorporates VR into the language training that we do. But I'm also weary, like the other part of me is weary about, I know that integration really needs that one-on-one connection. So I'm trying to figure out how do we balance giving our students what has been so key to success of the program, which is their own personal English tutor that they can practice with and speak to and do the cultural exchange activities with. How do we balance that with giving them, like, the VR goggles where they get to practice language with a virtual reality human? So I'm not sure. This is new to me, but maybe you guys have ideas about how do we balance the pros and cons.
So I think you're right. I think there definitely needs to be a human touch, basically, with language learning. I think language learning also depends on communication between people, 2 people, 3 people in a group setting as well. For me, how I saw the technology was more as an assistance and not a replacement of the current services that are provided. I think in what they can do, what the positive is that they're able to, because that they're easily adaptable and they can be adapted to different levels, different language learning styles, all these things. I think that they can be maybe a supplement. So an example, if there's multiple different levels in the same English class and one learner is more advanced than the others, maybe they can go aside and have some VR training on their own while the other class does learning with the teachers. So I think it's a good way to, we can have like different learning styles in the same class, and I think technology is able to facilitate that.
And we've had another question come in from the audience. So this is for you, Stuart. How long did it take to get eSkills.ca off the ground, and has COVID-19 impacted your delivery?
Well, thank you for the question. We're currently, it's a research project, so we're not delivering the the course per se, but rather piloting it, excuse me, and as part of the research endeavor. And obviously the digital literacy world is a large one, with very complex, with many competencies attached to it. And it's very challenging, obviously, to design to encompass all competencies. And so we are somewhat limited in the scope that we can accomplish, because it's a pretty small team. And we've, I think, managed to cover maybe 10% of the full scope of what we have intended to do to date, simply because of the resources available and the size of the endeavor. And we hope that there'll be an opportunity to leverage other partnerships or other partners or other sources of funding in the future to continue on with the project, to attempt to design for a larger number of competencies.
Your competency framework to date, Stuart, what is that built on? Where did you come up with the model that you're using?
So I'm not equipped to talk too much about the research involved, but it's based on current research in this field, and the team. It wasn't taken from somewhere. The model was actually developed in-house, so it's an eSkills model. Okay,
yeah, that's what I was wondering. It seemed like it might have been something that was novel. So
it is novel, and it's a mammoth task, because there are existing models out there, and I think the team looked at the various models and tried to develop a model that made the most sense for the project. And I think the framework and the model should be available at eskills.ca if you're interested in having a closer look at it. Obviously, having a 20 or 30 second look on a slide is probably not sufficient to give the topic justice.
I'd like to say that for the eSkills model, I found the simulations to be particularly interesting. So it would have been cool if we could have seen them come to life in some way. I don't know if given that we have a few minutes, if you have the ability to show us something like that, I think it would.
I would love to, but I'm really not sure. I didn't come prepared to do that.
That's okay, no problem. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, not at all. Thank you for your interest, Ashley. And if you go to eskills.ca, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to engage in a simulation. And if anyone on the call has interest in doing so, we can certainly facilitate that. They are super interesting, and I should have mentioned that the course is designed for CLB Stage 1 learners, so not intermediate learners, but beginner learners. And we hope one day to begin to design for Stage 2 as well.
Okay, we have no more questions from the group. So was there anything that anyone else had hoped to cover that perhaps you didn't cover that you wanted to bring up before the end of the session? Okay. Well, what about what's next, Bayan? So for you, for your program, what do you see as kind of the next step for the for the learners? You were saying you're going to be exploring potentially AR and VR. And what do you think are some of the things you'd need to ensure to help support you in that? Because it's actually quite interesting for those who are interested in these innovative tools and practices. What are the things you'd need to support your team, I guess, to be able to adopt, to train, to be successful in using them?
Well, the first thing we did was we were curious about what our clients think about this. And so we did like a quick survey with them to see if they would be interested, or if they think it's an intriguing idea, or if they're opposed to it. And the majority seemed to think it was very cool and exciting to be able to practice English with, you know, virtual reality human. So that's good. And then we're in very early stages of pursuing this avenue. So right now I have some meetings with various partners to kind of explore what are the ways to do it. Like I said, for me, it's also a learning curve, right? So I don't have a tech background, or we're trying to figure out what is the best way to do this. Again, our partnership with the University of Toronto is proving to be quite important. The language department there is exploring virtual reality for language training as well. So I have a meeting with them next week to figure out what they're up to and how they're trying to do it. There's a company in Vancouver that is doing virtual reality, various types of virtual reality training, as well as language is one of the areas they're doing. And so we're meeting with them as well to see how they're doing it. And we've applied for a grant from the federal government, which looks like we're going to get, to do a research, like to pilot this whole concept. And it'll have a huge research component integrated into it to really test out what works and what doesn't. So it's very new. Yeah, very new, very exciting, and a lot to learn.
It is exciting. I know there is when I was in Vancouver, and I was at Venture Labs there. They have one of their startups is an AI company that focuses on language learning technologies. And they gave me a chance to test their headset and walk through. And even, I mean, obviously my English is fairly fluent, but I was finding I was so engaged. I was like, I just want to keep going. I want to keep playing this mystery game where I'm learning English, but really it was just fun. So I can imagine, the opportunity, especially among perhaps younger learners, the joy of this different way of learning. But again, we've all seen through COVID how some people really thrive in purely online settings, and some people really need the support. And I think that, finding that sweet spot in human interaction and technology is going to be, something to research and document. And really, COVID has just kind of pushed this learning and accelerated it. So thanks today for everyone's insights, for the framing from ACS, some really important stories from buy-in and programs from everyone. So thank you all for joining today, and we look forward to finishing more discussions throughout the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for